Jake Sacher, connecting to audio. I can't hear you yet.
Hey,
Jake
how's
Sacher.
that?
Fantastic. There we go.
Wonderful. Excellent.
Awesome.
Ugh. I've got, right now, sorry, man, I've just got three computers running at the same time and they're each doing different things. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll use this laptop. This will be fine. Nope. Nope.
Yeah, I've got, are you using dual monitors now? Or do you have dual monitors for a lot of your setups?
Yeah, I use, right now I'm using a 2011 iMac as my main, and then I line it out. I have a second display that's like a 60-inch Samsung HD TV that I got for free.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, it's
Uh,
fun. So I put like my secondary system up top, like so if you see me look up, that's what I'm looking at,
mhm.
and then like whatever I'm mainly working on is on my iMac.
Yeah, 60-inch TV. That's good. I was thinking about getting one of those big ones because here in China, like we have this company called Xiaomi, and I'm not sure if you've heard of them. They're not very popular in Canada, but they make cheap televisions. And I was thinking about getting one to put up, like basically where you say to put it, right? And those are huge, like the massive
Yeah.
HD TVs. But to hang it up, and then it would sort of obscure my windows, and I don't want to obscure my
Uh,
windows.
yeah, and like if you were sitting in the room, it's quite overwhelming. Like it's big, and it does block a window that behind it, but like it was free. And what I do like about it is that often I'll have all my plugins up there, and then I'll have my actual edit window, whatever I'm cutting and splicing or faders, like right in front of me. So I do appreciate that. But if I was to do it again, like when I have to replace this system, I'm going to get one of those wide screens that are like three panels
Yeah,
in one. I'm probably going to do that.
like those
I think
21
that
inch. I've seen those. How big are they? Like 21 inches across, or are they bigger than that
no,
now?
they're huge. They're like well, they're as wide as the 60-inch TV. I
Yeah,
know it's a different way of measuring, but it allows for three panels in
yeah.
one screen.
I've seen
So I
those
think
before. And that's the curved one, right? Where
yeah,
so it's easier on your eyes. So they say. I don't understand, but
I don't know how that works. It's just a real estate issue for me.
yeah,
So
I bet. So is this your studio that you're in right? This is part of your studio that you're in right now?
yeah, what you're seeing, you can't see the desk, but you're just seeing like my crap over there, and then I've got keyboards and a couple of guitars that are out. I've got more guitars over here, and then headphones and cables, and just I've got some guitar pedals and like multi effects on the floor. Cause I've got some guys coming in tomorrow and on Saturday to do some stuff. So
Right now. Are you
yeah,
using a physical board at your fingertips? That's a physical board that you have, right? Like an actual mixer.
uh, not really. I've got I can't really show you, but I have a Mackie Big Knob Studio to control volume
Okay.
and to control sources. I did have a Mackie Universal Control for a while, the UCM, whatever it was called, the 8 fader. It was a big honking thing.
Yeah.
It was just taking too much of my desk, and I regret getting rid of it. I do. I really do. It was big and it took up a lot of space, but like I miss the faders a lot. So I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna do there. I'll pick
Right.
up. There's so many options now. Like it's too confusing.
So are you ever thinking about going completely digital, like getting an iPad basically and just using digital faders? Because I know that the Logic, you can pair it with your iPad and you can move the faders and everything. But I mean, the iPad's only that big, right? I mean, you can get bigger ones, but is that an
Yeah,
option for you?
I do that. Um, until like I was using it with Pro Tools. They used to have this app until they updated it. It was like the Yukon Control, and it was another company called Neandric. They make an app that'll control any DAW as well, right? It's all virtual faders, right? And it's good, but there's something like tactile that's nice about actual pushing things and something happens.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to like mouse clicking and dragging and pencils. Like, yeah, I want to.
But it would also be easier to tweak the knobs because I'm finding with like when I'm using Logic, trying to dial the knobs up and down, trying to get it to like exactly the level that I want, which could just be like infinity or zero, right? That's it.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be anything unique. Just trying to get it back to normal without pressing the reset button because then that resets everything. So I guess with those faders and then the little knobs all on the whole channel strip basically would be a lot easier to work with.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And well, the Avid one, let's see if I can pull up what it's called now. It's like Avid One or something like that. It was working with Logic as well, and because I flip in and out between Harrison Mixbus 32C, and then I use Pro Tools and I use Logic, and each one for different reasons. And it controlled everything, and it was fine. But then Avid did an update to their new, like, what was it? Like when they switched over to stop doing Pro Tools 2018, 2019, they flipped everything of how they do it. And then you had to get the new Mac OS to update, but you could still use the newer version of Pro Tools.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they updated the app. They didn't update. They allowed you to use old Pro Tools, but the app won't work with old Pro Tools. So now for me, Pro Tools is like 80% of what I work in. So now it's completely useless. So I don't it's like, whatever. So that's why I'm like, well, I wish I had faders again.
the fear of updating. I just updated my whole Mac system to Catalina, and I waited 8 months to do that because when it first came out, everyone's saying, don't do it. You're going to break your system. But when I looked at all the updates that had to happen with like Final Cut and Logic and all the other things I use, it was like, I guess I have no choice. I just have to update it and hope for the best sort of thing.
Oh, man. So how is it working for you?
There's one or two glitches I've noticed. Some playback for videos. It doesn't because I'm using two screens, it doesn't always recognize which one it's using, and it will stretch the video to fit that screen, which is bizarre. I never used to do this. So it's like if I full screen a video, it'll be nice, and then all of a sudden it'll stretch it further for some reason. It changes the aspect ratio. No idea.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, but I mean, it's only for playback. It's not actually for recording. So that's been okay. Other than that, my big concern was there's no more support for 32-bit programs. But then I'm looking at the update going, I actually don't use that many 32-bit programs. Like there's two, that's it. And then I haven't used them for years. So if I really need to, I guess I could have a workaround. So I'm sure there's going to be a workaround shortly for it. But yeah, other than that, it works fine. I don't really push the system too hard, except for when it's coming to like using Final Cut or Logic. Those are the only times that I actually need processing power. So as long as it's able to do that, I'm happy. And I mean, using Final Cut, it still spins my fans really fast. Same with Logic. So I have ice packs underneath everything. So I haven't noticed any sort of performance issue in terms of production, and everything else is just, it's kind of been same as it was with I think it was High Sierra that I was upgrading from. I skipped Mojave. Yeah, I didn't even bother with that one, although some people said it was good. But yeah, the only reason I upgraded to Catalina was because the list of updates that were required was just like every program that I had, and it required Catalina, Mojave or higher. So I'm like, okay, so I shouldn't argue with this one. I should just do it already.
Right. So then, are you using MacBook Pro then, or what do you use? Yeah, because I was looking at, cause I do have to replace this iMac at some point. Like it's been a tank and it works, but like I'm at that point of like it hasn't been supported now for a year and whatever. It does what I need it to do.
Yeah.
But you always got to replace this garbage. So I was looking at like the Mac Mini. Friends of mine that do post production, they're using Mac Minis, and they just like pimp them out so that they're like 3,500 Canadian, 4,000 Canadian. But what they're saying is they have to do what you're doing, is like cool it somehow. So there's this other company I saw that actually builds platform fans
Mhm.
specifically for like video content creators for these things.
Yeah.
Shoot, I should find out what it's called. And not that much. It's only like $150, I think. There's one for the MacBook Pro, and one for the Mac Mini.
Yeah. Yeah. Are those the same that it's like these external like it's like a basket for the laptop to sit on and it has extra fans or something, or is it like a liquid cooling system? Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's fans, but the way they've done it is that the fans are, they say, are virtually silent because they're designed for like audio studio use and video creator use, where you don't want any
Extra noise.
sound. Yeah, like you're dealing with enough already, right? So
I was looking into those because there are a few, like there's like Chinese knockoffs that you can get, and I was always sort of wondering how much noise would it contribute. But then also with this MacBook, they're all USB-C connections. So then if it's a USB-C connection, I need an adapter. And my fear with adapters is that it's one more thing that can break.
yeah,
So because and all those cooling systems, they all had USB-A connections, not USB-C. So I was thinking, well, I don't know if it's worth it. It was cheaper just to use ice packs, and they seem to work mostly well. My computer hasn't exploded yet. This one's a 2017 MacBook Pro, and I looked at the newer ones, and they're pretty nice, but they are quite costly. I've heard though a lot of people go into Mac Minis, which was not an option when I was buying my MacBook Pro. I asked the guy, I'm like, can't I just buy this cheaper Mac Mini? He's like, not if you're going to do 4K editing. So, with the MacBook Pro.
I heard that too. And then they came out with the new generation ones, and now those ones haul. Like they're they spec out really well. So I'm looking at maybe doing that, and they're tiny. So like
they fit in your hand. Like it's
they're
really small.
They're as big as I have an external hard drive over here that it's as big as that.
Wow.
They're tiny.
Yeah, it's the power that those things have these days. But so you're mostly running audio post-production stuff. You're not doing video work, are you?
No, I don't do video. I keep thinking about I should get into it.
Yeah.
Because but there's so many people doing it, and it's like I think I've kind of missed that boat already. Like I'm almost 40.
Right.
I think it would serve me well in certain aspects of it. But it's just there's more stuff to buy. That's how I look at it. Like I don't know how much more profitable it'll be.
Right.
So
yeah, at that point you'd have to be going like full-fledged studio, not like just audio post, but like green screen room studio, set lights and everything.
Yeah.
And it's more stuff to learn. Like I'm not sure how much time you want to spend figuring out, the electricity currents going through your room. So you don't blow anything up, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I work with a little bit a company called Ice River Films. Do you remember, when did you move away?
Ooh, Winnipeg. 2008, 2009, around there. Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember Psychotic Gardening?
Yes,
seeing that name floating around?
Yes,
okay, so Aaron, they're awesome. I mean, it's Chuck, so he's my brother. He's awesome. So Psychotic Gardening's guitar player, Andrew, he started his own company called Ice River Films.
Okay.
And it's just like a run and gun. They're two guys, and they shoot and they edit and they do everything. And they're great at it. Like they're really, really awesome. Now they've been picked up by an Aboriginal, well, not picked up by, but they sell a lot of their shows to APTN, which is like Aboriginal network here. And they're doing awesome work. Like a lot of the show called First Contact, which is about taking Canadians, like white Canadians from all over Canada, and then they take them to all these different reserves, and like, this is what reserves are actually like.
I've seen part of that show, actually.
It's a good show. So they've done 2 seasons with that, and yeah, anyway, so I do stuff with Andrew, and if ever I need, my point is, if ever I do anything video wise, I just give it to him. Be like, look,
it's sometimes better for that.
Yeah, I'll feed this to you. You get the work, you get the client, and then I'll deal with the audio afterwards. Because he doesn't, they don't do the audio side of it, right? Like, they dabble in it, but when it really gets into like full scale mix down, they farm it out to either APTN or CBC or whoever else is on the show.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of them farming it out, you could, on that level, you could compete with APTN and CBC, right? Like, you have that same sort of capability.
I would work with that kind of thing. Yeah, like, I wouldn't feel comfortable at my skill level doing a full like 5-1, 7-1 mix down. Like, yeah. I'm not, I could do a mix down for a documentary, but I wouldn't do it, and maybe for a series, but I wouldn't do it for like a film, like a full on like feature film. I'm not there.
Right.
I don't have the capability to do that.
Because they have special rooms for that, don't they? Like,
yeah.
5.
Yeah, I mean, like, when now you're talking Pro Tools HD, well, HDX, and you're gonna have like rooms full of gear in order just to keep up with the post processing, right? Like, it's just, yeah, I mean, when I do video edit, or not video, but when I do like sound for picture, it's usually dialogue editing, basic mix downs, else, sound design and all that kind of stuff. So when I'm doing that, my session, if I'm doing sound design for effects and stuff, my session's going to be 150 to 200 tracks. And so if you're doing a full mix down now you're talking like 500 tracks, right?
Wow.
Where it's just like, you don't have to do it that way, but for organization, it's so much easier just to have like, this track only does this sound.
Yeah.
Right? Just to keep it clear and keep it clean. But yeah, those guys like at CBC or even at my old work at Wanted Studios in Toronto, like, they've just got stacks of Pro Tools HDX systems. Otherwise, you just can't keep up.
So what does the Pro Tools HDX system do that's different from like the one that you're using? Or that's different from Logic Pro, like a schmuck retail prosumer type people?
Yeah, no, Logic's great. Like, I know guys that use it for the series, for some of these series and stuff too. It's just a question of how much can your system handle. So Logic and Pro Tools are native-based systems, so they're going to run off your normal desktop computer. What HDX does is it runs off of an external, basically it's another server computer, right, that's doing all the processing just for that program, and that's all it does.
Okay.
So your host computer is going to run like basic things and like maybe some stuff for the background of the system operation. But like, if you get into a Pro Tools HDX system, or what's the old version was the TDM system for Pro Tools HD, TDM, time division multiplexing, you could have it was basically a computer, and they'd have PCI cards that you could insert into there that you'd have to buy from Avid, or at the time it was DigiDesign. And one of those cards was like $3,500 to $5,000 for one card. So you'd have this server, and then like, if it was 5 cards in the server, like, now you're talking $25,000.
Yeah.
And it's a one unit, you know. But then you have unlimited track count. Everything's done on there. Rarely is it going to start bogging down. But if you need to do like a feature film, you're going to need, you'll need like 3 or 4 of those.
Right.
5.
That sounds like what Apple's doing with their eGPUs right now. And I saw that they just released these a couple of years ago, that they have an external, basically graphics card that takes all the load off of your system and just does all your graphic processing. It's meant for video editors, not so much for audio. I was talking to another guy here who was on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he uses a UAD, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's a separate server box or separate processor box
Yep.
for all of his plugins and stuff like that. And that's same idea. So
Yep.
in some sense, it's like it's actually cheaper because that was $3,000. The eGPO is a couple thousand. I mean, with those two devices, you should have a decent setup to be able to handle most projects.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
If not all
absolutely.
projects that most people are going to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, even like the new Macs that they've come out with, right? Where I think a friend of mine spec'd one out when he like the rack mount computer, and it was like $120,000 when you max it out. He sent me the screenshot. He's like, "Hey, look at this." It's like,
But
what?
that's all the RAM, that's all the hard drive, like the 2 TB
Yeah,
SSD hard drive and stuff like that.
yeah, exactly. But it was more about the video rendering cards, right? Like, because now you're doing stuff in 8K, and then you're futuring,
Mhm.
like you're getting ready for whatever the next gen, if it's going to be 12K or 16 or whatever they decide to do.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing.
Who knows? Maybe coronavirus will make them skip a number. So
Yeah.
you're starting. You've started your own studio, or are you still working with other people? Like Sacher Audio is on your website, and so you've broken off. And you're now on your own. What are you doing with your studio?
Most of what I do is right now, the last 2 years has been music. It's
Okay.
been like recording bands, mixing projects, um, editing for people. But most of what I do is mixing and mastering. Um, So, what that entails is like a band will record, they'll mix their own stuff with someone else, and then they'll send it over to me to finalize it so it can play. That mix can, I'll add a little bit of clarity often to it, and then it'll go to, so that it'll play across all platforms relatively similarly, right? Because the algorithms for the streaming services now between YouTube and Spotify and Bandcamp, Deezer and Tidal and all these things, like they all sound different,
Mhm.
right? So it's like, okay, well, how do I get something that's going to sound close across all those platforms and then across most home systems and car systems and stuff and headphones? So it's like, okay, this is an average, and we want to have it nice and clear but not harsh and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I've been doing for the last little bit. I've got bands coming in this weekend. I'm tracking, so recording drums. Actually, we're doing electronic drums instead of an actual acoustic kit because it's just like
Uh-oh,
the
you've made the switch.
buddy, dude. I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, it's so much better because, well, the behind me, like this room, I use for mixing. Right, I'll record guitarists, and stuff in here, and then I'll usually reamp in here, so you can see I've got a couple speaker cabinets and amps and stuff there.
Yeah.
I'll either do it in here, or I'll do it out in the room behind me. But the room behind me is like I've got 3 kids, so there's TV in there, and there's like a whole bunch of kid stuff in there. Sorry, decline. Um, so there's a whole bunch of kid stuff in there. So I don't want to really have people over to track drums in there very often. I do it if they don't have a budget, like, okay, fine, do it here. So I said, well, the drummer that we're doing this weekend, he's not the strongest drummer. So we're going to record the MIDI from an electronic kit. And then instead of going through all the editing, it's just like, boop, move. So
Quantize.
yeah, kind of. It's still his
Oh.
performance. I'm only going to move stuff if it needs to be, but if it was a little rough last time. So it's like, well, I ended up replacing the whole kit last time. So
Right.
why don't we just save us? And he loved the sound he got. So, well, let's just get an E-kit. I'll record the MIDI, and then that'll be, we'll save ourselves about 12 hours worth of setup time and all that kind of stuff.
And editing and everything. So then, you've worked with a lot of bands, but is it? And I have to kind of fight back here. Is it only the drummer that needs this sort of post work? Because I know it's
Oh no,
the drummer has the most elements that are moving at one
yeah,
time, and there's the physical ability or disability to do something, and then you just get tired. But guitarists
yep.
or vocals, like what else sort of do you do to help someone fix their performance in the studio?
That's an excellent question. So, um, drums are the hardest because, as you say, there's so many mics and pieces going on, and it really depends on the drummer and the feel and all that of what you want to accomplish. But really, guitar players bass players are the easiest usually. And even if they're a complex bass player, it's like they're usually really in tune with what's going on, right? Like they're pretty quick to adapt to changes on the fly, and so that's good. Guitar players are often wanting to add tons of things as they hear things back. So as a recording, it's like, oh, I'll try this. So where maybe a drummer, I'm not going to make him do the song more than 3 times because like it's going to be tired.
Yeah.
It's like, so, but if I don't have a good take performance within those three runs back to back, it's like, we're taking a break, clear your head, come back. Whereas a guitar player, I'll do the same part and the guy will play the same part for like 50 takes in a row.
Oh,
right. It's like, oh, I got to nail this. Like, yeah, you do. It's like, nope, not good enough. So, and with guitars too, it's, there's often, especially with metal bands, it's very unforgiving. Like it has to be precise.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't get away with a lot of like, in acoustic, you can get away with mistakes with feel and rock music a little bit. It's like, oh, that was a nice little mistake that you made there. Let's keep that. That has some character. Whereas I find it in a lot of metal, depending on, usually it's demands precision and perfection. Otherwise, because things are moving so quickly that.
In what way though? What sort of precision?
Well, let's say you're doing a song often the songs are quick, right? So it'll be a song at, let's say, 220 BPM. Well, if you're trying to do 16th notes at 220, that's fast,
mm-hmm.
right? So if you've got a guy trying to do a run and he hasn't practiced enough to nail that run, it's like, that's going to come out, right? It's like, well, not good enough. Let's do it again. Just that part. And I'll even punch single notes of just like, look, no, you're not getting it. Just really hit that note. And by the end of it, it's like, you'll see my playlist and it'll be like, yeah, I've had 50, 60 takes. I'll just
making up that one riff.
You bet. Yeah, and that'll be one guitar line.
Right. So then, because I was talking to this other guy about using digital instruments to create. Is it possible to create like a metal riff on the guitar without really having any idea of what you're doing? Because it's a lot easier to do it with drums. Like the metal drums, I mean, you could do it no problem, click and copy the double bass part, right? But the guitars, the guitar would require a bit more melodic awareness, wouldn't it, in order to create that movement that you're trying to do?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything that can do it yet. There's like Native Instruments makes some stuff. Like they've got, I think they've got a bass player one that's pretty good, but strings in general are hard to synthesize properly, to sample properly into something like that. But I think they make an acoustic one that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. And you'll hear it a lot, especially on like reality TV shows and anything where it's like, you just got to bang it out and nobody really cares about what it sounds like.
For the music.
Yeah, so they want to feel. They don't care about what the tone is, right? Like nobody's going to sit there with a Marshall amp for 4 hours adjusting the mid sweep. It's like, no, just get it out. Like, who cares? We want a heavy guitar sound. So they'll program it. And Spitfire Audio makes some stuff that's more choral and like orchestral stuff. I think they have some guitars in there too. There's a bunch of sample libraries. So like if you wanted to get more of a, let's say, like the WWE era when all the entrance music was coming in and all the guys were coming into like that new metal stuff back in like the early 2000s, that was all done on keyboards.
Right.
Like most of that stuff was written out on keyboard and just like, right?
So, are you only doing audio post now, or are you still in a band? Is Serrated Scalpel still around, or any of your other
Well,
next projects?
we've done 2 reunion shows. We did one in 2017, one in 2018. And then we were supposed to open for this, one of my heroic bands called Nile. We were supposed to open for them in October, but then COVID canceled everything. So we
Oh, okay.
said, oh man, it was so crushing. It was like, I've looked up to those guys since like 97.
Right.
So, oh, to get a chance to open for them. And anyway, so we've decided like we're going to start writing again. And I mean, we're all old dads now at this point. It's like, well, why not? But we're now the classic rock. So,
Oh no, heavy metal turns classic. Oh, it's over.
dude,
It's all over.
man, okay, we used to talk about the Tea Party. I remember this. You and I, we would talk about the Tea Party because
Yeah.
they're like one of the best bands ever, in my opinion. I love them so much. And when they played, do you remember the Minnedosa Rock in the Fields out in central Manitoba?
I would
Okay, well,
not
they
have
do.
been old enough to go to that.
Fair enough. They played, this would have been 7 or 8 years ago. They
Mhm.
headlined the classic rock fest up there, and I just hugged my head. It's like, oh, I'm there now.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, these guys are so awesome. The young kids are like, who are these guys?
What did you say? How dare you? Here's
I,
the
uh,
catalog.
I actually saw them in Seattle back in 2017. Just happened to be, I was in Vancouver visiting my brother, and then I went down to Seattle for a week, and they were there. I'm like, what? You guys are playing? Awesome. I'll go see you. And they're fantastic. They still have it after all these years. That sound, and they
Is
go
that
to Australia quite a bit.
yeah, yeah, they spent a lot of time there. Did they happen to, was that on the Edges of Twilight, or the maybe it was a Transmission 20th anniversary tour or something like that?
Transmission, yes, they played a lot of those songs.
I
Yeah,
went to that tour. It was amazing.
yeah.
It was so good. My
I don't,
my heart skips.
I don't suppose you have an extra tour T-shirt from that show, do you? Because I didn't. I neglected to get one from Seattle.
I wish I didn't buy one. I should have. I think I balked at the T-shirt pricing again. It was
That's what I did. That's a sign of getting old, isn't it? You're going, how much for a T-shirt? But I did that again with Guns N' Roses in Hong Kong, and now I'm kicking myself for that one too. I mean, oh, should have
I
got one
know.
anyway. Just buy it. Even if you don't wear it, get it. It's a memory.
I know. So when did you go see the GNR show? Was that on the reunion one?
Yeah,
This is like 2 years ago or whatever.
that was 2018. So they played Winnipeg 2017, which I also
Yeah,
went to last minute. That was a great show. They were even better in Hong Kong, I think. And they played 2 nights. We went to both nights. They played
awesome.
the same set though. So it was the 21st, 22nd of November. And they played the same set. I don't think there was any changes, maybe a minor change for maybe Slash's guitar solos or something. But it was
Right.
still 2.5 hour epic show. They just went on. By the end of it, you're like, are they still playing? I can't believe it. This band hasn't generated any new material, very little new material in the last decade, but they still put on a 2.5 hour show. Not like Metallica. Metallica's like it's 3 hour show with new stuff thrown in and everything, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, I love that tour. I was actually blown away by, I can't remember the other guitar player's name now. I think Richard. Anyway, his guitar tone blew my mind.
Richard
He
Fortus, right?
was, I think, yeah. He was like, I could not believe how much of a better player he was than Slash too. Like, I know that's heresy to say that, but it's like, this guy's a better player like in every aspect. Like, he's amazing. But yeah, that was a good show. That was fun.
So do you keep up with the music as it is these days? Because you're in audio production. Um, so are you if a young band, and
Yep.
kids in their 20s, maybe early 30s, they come into your studio, say, oh, we want it to sound like these guys. Are you aware of some of the names that they're saying these days? Or because if they said them to me, I'd be like, no idea who you're talking about.
Yeah, most of that's because I'm in that world and I'm always looking for new things. So I like that kind of stuff. But they have a new genre subgenre in the death metal world called slam, which is like,
Okay.
I know it's so funny. It's basically like, how do I put it? If you ever listen to Cannibal Corpse, it would be like that, but with more hardcore style vocals. And then they'll do really slow breakdowns. And then
Okay.
that's how they, and that's
So
what
it's
they
like
call it.
new metal on steroids. Because that's what
Yeah,
new
just don't
metal
say
was.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, don't say that to them though. Yeah,
Because that's what
that'll.
new metal was all about. Like where when Limp Bizkit came out and Korn, all those guys, it was like really aggressive verse, and then it breaks down a little bit and gentle, and then it goes into the chorus. Oh, heavy.
Yeah, this would be much faster than that.
Yeah.
For the most part, it would be more like a. Yeah, actually, that's not a bad way to put it. If you took like ultra fast, like hardcore from the early 2000s and mixed it with new metal breakdowns, that just don't tell them I said that. That's close to what it would be. Yeah. And then they put in like these I don't know if they're still doing it. If I think it's gone out of style now, but they used to put in these like bass bomb drops. So you'd hear it and there'd be this stop and then boom, and it'd be like this sub frequencies that would go in. The same thing happened in dance music too at the same time. Everybody was putting these bass bombs in there. And it was just like every single song had one.
Right.
You
know what?
Stop it.
I'm sure they're gonna figure it out in 10 years ago. Yeah, no, this is just new metal for like on steroids. That's all it is. But I mean,
Yeah, it's just faster.
New metal was sort of like grunge metal, but much more aggressive. So
it's down to the guitars.
And they upped the volume of everything, and they had a bit more of an edge in terms of their look as well.
Yeah, they started wearing masks.
Yep, Slipknot was sort of the poster boys of that, basically, right? So in terms of this new style of music, in terms of technicality, in your music career, in our music careers, because we've known each other for a while, and I should point out for those who are listening to this, Jake and I used to play the rock bars of Winnipeg back in the day, back in the late 90s. You would have been active late 90s, and then I came onto the scene of the Sierra Steers in the early 2000s.
Yep.
But in terms of like playing, how have the players developed over that time? What have you seen?
I'm gonna date myself. The kids now are playing unbelievably more advanced than they were when I started. Like it's not even close. Like it's embarrassing actually. Like because like we thought we were when Serrated came out, we were trying to push the boundaries of like tremolo picking, right? And we were listening to a lot of bands like Cannibal Corpse and Cradle of Filth and Demon Borgir and that kind of stuff. Nile would still be, I would think, on the extreme end. Like I've never seen anybody pull off a Nile song properly yet, but we thought we were trying to push those boundaries, and now the kids are coming out with like 8-finger taps, on their guitars, and they're doing it like they're nailing it. And I've had this discussion a bunch of times, and it's I think if we had the technology at the time that they do now, it would be comparable. But like the young guys now, the young people now, not just guys, there's a lot more women out there that are killing it. Right. Sarah Longfield, as for an example, she's amazing. There are people that are much more willing to share their knowledge, just as a culture where it used to be like a hoarded secret of like, this is how I do drums or my guitar sound. It's my engineering trick. Like Eddie Van Halen used to turn around when he did his tapping, right?
Right.
When he first started doing that, and it was this hoarded secret. And then everybody started doing it. And I think it's kind of the same now, where you get like a guy like Tosin Abasi, who's doing like thumb slaps playing 8-string guitars. He's basically playing bass and guitar at the same time, and he shows you how to do it.
Right.
It doesn't really expect anything in return. It's like, oh yeah, this is what I do here. Now you do it.
So in terms of technology, what are you referring to?
Like when YouTube videos.
Right. Okay.
Like you can even reach out to the artists now. Like where you couldn't do that before. Everybody's on Instagram and Facebook, and it's like, can you imagine writing a letter to like David Lee Roth.
Or Axl Rose or like
Yeah,
anybody.
yeah. Like if you, yeah, it would just be, you wouldn't hear anything,
Right.
if anything, right? So now it's just like they have to engage, or at least their PR person, in the case of like somebody ultra famous, is going to engage with you. But in a lot of cases, like you can actually get a hold of these artists and just be like, hey, I really like your tone on this. How did you pull that off? And they'll tell you.
Yeah.
Just be like, oh yeah, I'm using this guitar, this pickup. I pick here. I have to change my hand position to get that exact tone. And this is how I do it. Oh, well, that's nice. Thank you very much. You know,
And they're
so
a lot.
it,
They're a lot more accessible in all ways, though. It's not just the YouTube. It's, I mean, they're a lot more open, and uh, they're recording these videos and they're putting them there. So if you can't see them the first time, you can watch them 1,000 times later on, right?
absolutely. And doing like live Q&A videos and stuff. And like, it was unheard of.
Podcasts.
Podcasts, exactly, right? Like this never happened before, right? Like the best you got before was zines, right? You
Yes.
have an independent person like interviewing a band as they come through town. They'd write their little thing, or get them on the phone through their management company somehow, and
Uh,
then that was
so
it.
what happened? I mean, why were we so disadvantaged? And it's such a disadvantage so many years ago. What a first world problem to say, right? I guess the internet did play a huge role in that. I mean, without, I don't know if you remember the first time you logged onto the internet, but to me it was underwhelming. It was like, okay, so what next?
Yeah, yeah. I remember getting my first email account, being like, "Why do I have this?"
Yeah, this is useless. I'll go talk to him. I mean,
Just call them.
so then, so the musicality's gotten better, more technical, more intricate. What about the business side of things? Because you actually showed an album on your Facebook page, the Studio 11 mix CD, not even a tape. And there's what, 19 bands on there, 16 bands?
Oh, so I have. Where did I put that? Maybe I put it back in the rack. Yeah.
I mean, and that was supposed to be one of those collections that Studio 11 did. Is Studio 11 still around, or they're still
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they put out that collection in an effort to sort of expose Winnipeg music to a larger audience. But how many of those bands made it? I mean, are they still working? Are they making money? Or have they all just stopped it basically?
Yeah.
I know Sierra's Tears is not together currently.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I don't know what the numbers are offhand, but I've looked into this a bunch, especially like when I was at audio school at Metalworks. We went through the business courses, and we really got into like the in-depth of how the business side actually works, not just like being some touring. And I don't mean to disparage anybody that's on tour. That's not what I'm doing, but
Oh yeah.
just like, you're plugging away night after night, but like, how do you actually make money in the music industry, right? Through royalties and all that kind of stuff. Well, when Metallica took Napster to court, I remember saying at that time, like everybody was hating on Metallica, and I said, no, I think they're right, actually. This whole like intellectual property copyright thing, like if we're gonna live in a society that's like where we value copyright as like a monetary source of income for people, I think they're right on this. And I still think they were right on that to this day. And I think that them losing really, that case single-handedly destroyed that business model entirely. Because after that happened, everybody was stealing music, and then it became okay to do so. And even now with streaming, where you pay your $15 a month or $10 a month, if you even pay that,
Right.
Spotify has their own free service. YouTube's free. Those artists are getting minimal, like fractions of a cent per play, right? Whereas if you used to get on the radio and SOCAN found you, like SOCAN was the, what does that stand for? It basically collected all your royalties for you in Canada, and it had international agreements.
Right.
And you would get, basically it was 7 cents per song on the radio.
Woo.
right? So,
Yeah.
well, I mean, if you're on, so what they would do, they took the math and then they would say, okay, you were on 5 p.m. In Winnipeg. You were also at 4:30 in Toronto, and you were on in Vancouver. We also found you in LA and whatever. Okay, so we're going to extrapolate that, saying that you're a mainstream artist, and if you're on those stations at that time, we have this formula, and then they say you're probably getting about X many plays, and they were pretty close. So here's your check for $1,000, $10,000, $5, whatever it worked out
Yeah.
to be. Whereas now it's like, who cares? Right? Like it's that whole business model went out the window, and it's like you're giving your music away for free,
Right.
so that you can play live, right? And then you're going to charge $60 for a T-shirt, right? And hope that you're going to recover this money. Well, now with COVID, the whole business model's been just like completely imploded,
Right.
right? Like now there's no income for any of these touring artists because they can't. All they're having to do now is like stay at home and do like live videos.
And do live videos, because then they can, because I know with my own YouTube channel, you can't monetize until you hit a certain number of subscribers.
Right.
And then you need certain streams, a certain number of people to watch it before you can actually, make money at
Yep.
any rate. I think
Yep.
off of YouTube, I've made $15 total out of the 10 years that I've been posting videos to it. But I mean, I don't put any real effort into those videos. That's more of a backup of my travel videos that I don't want to lose.
Well, no, but which are great, by the way. Like I loved watching your train rides and stuff. I thought that was amazing. I loved it. But that's how it is, though, right? Like it's you get this, like, let's take Anthrax for an example. So Anthrax is one of the big four thrash metal bands of all time, right? They're arguably one of the best and biggest bands in that genre. They're not making a lot, right? Like they may have like 100,000 or a couple 100,000 followers on YouTube or on Instagram, but like that's not generating them any money,
Right.
until they get into like, okay, well now that they're at home, here's Scotty Ian doing a collaboration with Mike Patton from Faith No More and whoever else, and these guys are doing it. They're sending each other files, and they combine the video, and then they release that. Well, hopefully that makes 10,000 views, so they can actually each collect their $10 or whatever. So like, like actually Dave Ellefson from the band Megadeth, he's the bass player from Megadeth. He had some pretty cryptic words about this whole thing on Loudwire. He did an interview, this was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, basically saying like, he feels bad for any band that's not in his echelon,
Right.
because there's no way that they can make a living. Like he didn't name names, but he was definitely talking about like Trivium, which is still another larger name.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
And yeah, but like when they play Winnipeg, they don't sell out the Pyramid, and the Pyramid holds 400 people, 500
Wow.
people. So this is what we're talking about, right? Like, okay, you see it in Europe, they're playing these huge festivals where there's 80 bands over 3 days.
Yeah.
So that might sustain them for a while, but like really, it's pretty sad, actually. Like I was even just listening to, not to get too down on it, but Chris Baseford, sorry. He's a mix engineer. He did Rob Zombie, John 5. He's doing the new Nickelback album right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he was doing a mixing masterclass that I was on, and he was talking about like he's okay right now, and he's an A-list engineer, like he's got Grammys and all this kind of stuff. He said he's fine for now, but he's really concerned about when all the supports fall, and we're looking into September, and now there's like, you've missed festival season, now you're into like getting into the Christmas season of album sales and tour cycles. Well, if you can't do that, like these A-list artists aren't going to be having any income either.
Yeah.
So this whole business, and this is a really long way to get to like what Napster and the internet has done, and how we don't value like music anymore.
Yeah, that's the
And that's
same
just
with
the state.
video as well, though. I mean, because video, I
Totally.
mean, who pays for most videos that they watch? I mean, no one does. You stream it, you watch it once, you laugh, and then you know, go away, sort of thing. You find the next one. But
Exactly.
so then, when you meet these new bands, and I don't, they aren't as egotistical as maybe I was when I was a child. You know, I'm going to be the next, you know, big rock star. What what goes through your head when you hear someone talk like that, or maybe they intimate that like this is going to be the life that they lead?
What my first thought is, that's awesome that you want to do this, and then I start like bringing in, okay, if you want to do this, I'll put my engineer hat off to the side, and I'll put on my like band manager hat, and and like give a lot of free advice of like, if you're going to do this, these are the steps that you need to take in order to do that, and there's no guarantee at the end of it. But but if you don't do the paperwork properly, you're going to get hooped. So these are the steps, and go through the steps, take advantage of the grant monies, and then I lay all that out for them.
Right.
And then the bands that start doing that thing, those are the ones that I'm really excited about, because they're taking it seriously, right? If it's the, I want to crush beers every weekend and play and like get girls, it's like, man, you're in the wrong business.
Well, it works for a little while, and then it stops working, basically.
Yeah, well, you should get into EDM if that's what you want to do.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you got drugs in there too. But then, so what are some of those steps that you mentioned? The grant money. I've always found that Canadian artists, especially, are heavily reliant on the government for artistic support. Like they can't.
Oh yeah.
A band in Winnipeg can't support themselves through touring. It's just too expensive to get out of the city in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. It's 6 hours to the next major city, and the next major city is half the size of ours, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to go to Regina, it's like there's 400,000 people there. Okay, but like or if you want, and then if you want to go to Minneapolis into the States, it's like, well, then you got to do your paperwork. You got to plot that out 6 months in advance.
Oh.
I think they've eased those restrictions until COVID started. Like I think they've eased some of that, but yeah, basically there's different programs that different provinces offer, and then there's federal programs as well. So you get Factor, that's more for like video shoots, music videos, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then there's in Manitoba, there's the Manitoba Film and Music. I think they changed their name recently. Film and Sound. It used to be Film and Sound. Now it's Film and Music.
Yes.
Anyway, they have a grant program too, where it's like basically they'll match you 50-50 of what you're going to put into a studio or into a tour. They have other grants available as well. The federal government has a program where it's like they'll match you up to $10,000 to do certain things, to like for touring or for marketing, but that you have to have a solid business plan written out, your publishing and all that. Yeah, I do have to get going soon.
Yes, I see that where our time is up. Okay, well, cheers. Thank you very much for joining me today. If people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
You can go to my wonderful website I designed off of Wix.
It looks fantastic.
That's free, yay! It's at www.sacheraudio.com. You can get a hold of me there. Just send me a message, or on Facebook. I'm on Sacher Audio Services on Facebook.
Right on. Okay, I'll put those links up on the show notes to this episode. And excellent. Look forward to talking to you again. All right. Good luck with the session
so much,
tonight.
Man. It was nice to talk to you, bud.
All right. Have a good one. Talk again. Bye-bye.
Take care.